What should you do if you are burned out? Hey, everybody. My name is Steven. I'm from Allan Admissions. And today we're going to talk about a topic that I and probably many of you are unfortunately all too familiar with, and that's dealing with burnout. And especially for you, how do you deal with burnout when it's senior year, you're facing final exams, and you still have multiple colleges to finish? Well, let's take a look and dive into what you should do. First, I want to give you a little bit of background about what I went through several years ago because I am certainly very familiar with the symptoms of burnout and the consequences of it. So, my senior year, I took countless AP classes, 7 specifically, but it felt like a countless amount. I played a major supporting role in theater. I was working on several college applications, and my sleep just suffered severely as a result. The consequences of this, as you can see in this PowerPoint slide, were not very good. I'd fall asleep at the wheel, I'd fall asleep in classes, and I just had a really hard time focusing and staying present in the moment. Essentially, the best way I can describe this is that I developed effective tactics at dealing with an ineffective strategy. What do I mean by this? Well, the tactics I developed, which were to take quick 3-minute naps in between classes, to pull over to the side of the road and take a 5-minute power nap, they were effective at what I needed to do. But I really should have taken a step back and asked myself, why am I doing this in the first place? Why am I putting myself in a position where I have to take 5 or 6 5-minute naps a day? Why am I putting myself in a position where I'm driving home and I'm having to fall asleep at a gas station because I'm so exhausted? The answer is there's no good reason. Now, yes, this is a busy time for me. I was hyper focused on getting into Duke, but it just affected me. It affected my relationships with my family. And quite frankly, it's kind of a miracle that I even stayed above water at this point. And a large part of this has to do with the fact that I just didn't have good coping strategies. My strategy in that particular moment was just grind, grit my teeth, and get through. And this wasn't consequence free. Yes, I did get into Duke, and yes, that was cause for celebration. Maybe someone might say, well, the end justifies the means, and I got into the school I wanted, so ultimately that justified getting 4 hours of sleep a night, falling asleep at the wheel, so on and so forth. But the reality is, life doesn't end at high school. Certainly, that's the approach I took to college. I was not only acutely burned out, but I was chronically burned out. And I entered my first semester at Duke with very little care for academics. I was so exhausted with the idea of studying for several hours, with preparing for the future, that my GPA ended up being so low my freshman year, I was ineligible to rush. At Duke, you're not allowed to rush until your second semester. And that was embarrassing. It was kind of a wake up call for me. The GPA requirement was not high. It's not like a 3.5. It was, I think, a 2.5. I just needed a 2.5 GPA. But because I had burned myself to the ground so hard during high school, I was walking into my freshman year at Duke with very little foundation to build off of. And the results were, while all my friends were having a good time and getting to join fraternities and build their networks, I was having to make up for lost ground. So don't think that if you just grit your teeth and get through the next few weeks, the next few months, all will be well and it'll be worth it. There are long-standing consequences to burnout like this. But you might be saying, well, that's you, Stephen. That was several years ago. Times have changed. And it's absolutely true that mental health is less of a taboo topic. And the idea of dealing with burnout is a more acceptable conversation. But it's not just me that I've seen. I've worked with several students who deal with issues like this. And here are some of the things that they face. Students I work with generally fall into two categories: the burned out ones and the ones who are smart enough to detach when they feel they're getting burned out. And the burned out ones invariably display the same characteristic and the same behavior, which is they focus on accomplishing things that just ultimately don't matter. They change a word in an essay, they fret over something for 30 minutes that makes no difference, and they derive a sense of accomplishment that, while that sense of accomplishment might feel nice, it's ultimately not helpful. And there's an opportunity cost in there that could have been spent on resting, could have been spent on eating, could have been spent on doing just about anything else that would have had a greater impact on their overall success. And the students who do detach, even if it's just for an afternoon, even if it's just they get home at 4, they go and just binge YouTube or go for a run for an hour, even if it's just 1 hour, they invariably come back with a fresher eyes. They're better able to do the work they do. They have more creative suggestions for when they revise their essays. And ultimately, this has a much stronger impact on their final results. Invariably, applying to college is really hard. And especially if you're applying to Ivy League schools, there's no world in which you can just say, I'm going to sleep 8 to 10 hours a night. I'm going to do my homework. I'm going to do my extracurriculars, and I'm just going to cruise into college. Undoubtedly, some of you are extremely smart and are better able to do this. But the amount of effort, the amount of time, the amount of mental energy it takes to apply to these schools, I can't sit here and tell you, oh, just don't worry about it. That's not particularly useful. The odds are very, very high that at some point you're going to feel so much stress that you will be teetering on the edge of burnout. So the goal with this video is not necessarily to say, how do we 100% avoid burnout? The question that I'm trying to address here is, okay, you're facing burnout, you're at that teetering point, you might have already started to tip over. What are some strategies that I have helped students use or that I've seen other students use to help get through this phase of burnout so that they can get to the other side and fulfill their essay and their academic requirements? Step 1, you have to accept that you're burned out. This would have been impossible for me. I was of the mindset of I have to grind, I have to get it done, and to accept that I was burned out would have felt like weakness. Now, the other issue with this is that it's extremely hard to be self-aware that you are burned out. So the combination of feeling like you have to push through and the difficulty of lacking the self-awareness to know that you are burned out makes this step particularly difficult, which makes it all the more important that you have a support network. That support network can be your teachers, it can be your parents, it can be a coach or a theater teacher, an instructor of some kind. It could be your friends, your siblings. But you really need someone who can sit there and objectively look at you and say, you are dealing with burnout. Or who can say, I know this is hard, but you're still going at a good pace. Keep it up. Having that objective outsider view will be really important to giving you a clear view. And if they tell you you're burned out, please accept the truth. They're not trying to soft pedal you or to say, oh, don't work so hard. When I tell a student that they're burned out, it's not because I think, oh, they're not capable and they should just pull back. It's because I'm looking at the work that they're doing and their edits are at best keeping the essay in neutral and at worst actively making it worse. And even the ones who are stuck in neutral are actually having an overall negative effect because they would have spent 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour on something that had no positive impact when they could have been better spending their time on something that would have a positive impact. So please, step 1, admit you're burned out, or at the very least, if you suspect you might be too stressed or are feeling burned out, go seek advice from someone who can provide a clear perspective. Second step, take a complete break from college applications. And when I say a complete break, I don't mean, oh, take a break from your essays, but go work on your activities. Or, okay, I'm not going to do any writing or any activities, but I'm going to just watch some YouTube videos about my favorite university to get ideas. I mean, take a 100% complete break. You don't want to look at the word college. You don't want to watch a YouTube video. This particular video right here, if you're feeling burned out, click off it. Go watch something else. Go watch, something from sports or about your favorite movie or about a hiking destination you can go to. You need to completely clear your mind of this so that you can come back with a fresh perspective as best as possible. This is essential because it not only allows your brain to recover, it allows you to come back even stronger than before you started to feel a little bit burned out. I can't really emphasize this enough. Now, yes, if you have academic schoolwork and you can't avoid it, you're going to have to do the schoolwork. But strictly through the lens of college applications, we need a 100% detachment if you are feeling burned out. So you've offloaded application work, you've stepped away from it 100%, but you're not done finishing getting things off your plate. I would highly encourage you politely and as nicely as you can to ask others to help pick up the slack for you. If normally you help cook and you just feel like I can't do this, ask your parents, hey, mom, dad, would you be able to help cook for me tonight? Ask your siblings, if you normally mow the lawn, I'm feeling a little bit burned out. Can you help do this for me? Can you help rake the leaves for me? I think it's really important that you be able to give yourself some time where you are not feeling a sense of obligation, that you are able to free yourself up to either do work you have to do, such as if you have homework or if you have a final exam the next day, and to instead give yourself time to do things that you enjoy, whatever those particular things may be. But what does that mean to do things that you enjoy, to do things that help you relax? The key to me is finding something you enjoy, but that's ultimately intellectually easy or, frankly, intellectually nothing. What does that mean? Trash TV, perfectly fine. Reality TV, perfectly fine. Easy YouTube videos, comedy, whatever, totally fine. The goal here, again, we're not trying to do anything that challenges our brain. We just want something that makes us laugh, that makes us feel good. It's a pity indulgence. The one kind of exception I might make here, I wouldn't go binge on trash food. That can have physiological effects that would actually make your mental state even worse. But, if you want a scoop of ice cream or two, that's not going to do anything wrong. I'm just saying, when I talk about doing something that's fun and rewarding, I'm not saying go eat an entire medium pizza from Papa John's. I'm speaking from example here. Believe me. It may feel good, and then an hour later you're like, why the hell did I do that? Don't be like me. Do something that's intellectually unchallenging, but also it's not going to wreck your body and therefore your mind a little bit later. Indulge in that however long you're able to. Again, let's be realistic here. You still have schoolwork to do. You still have extracurricular activities to do. But even just an hour of this, maybe it's playing with your dog. Maybe it's just watching a basketball game. Whatever it is, even if it's just an hour, you're going to derive significant benefits from it. So cool. Okay, you've done that. But at some point, we do have to come back to college applications. How are we going to get back into the flow of things without putting ourselves right back in the spot we were being burned out? I recommend 2 days if you're able to swing it. And the reason for 2 days is everyone can say, okay, I'll take a day off, but that may not be enough to actually help you heal. Oftentimes, to bring a different example in, with running, if my legs are particularly beat up, maybe my ankles are feeling stiff, my knees just aren't feeling it, I'll take 2 days off. And I'll tell you, that second extra day off just really has magical effects. I think once you get to 3 days off, you can kind of lose that rhythm and flow a little bit. You can actually tip too far in the other direction where the benefits of working a little bit hard and keeping it top of mind start to slip, and you have to remind yourself of things that you may not have needed to before. But 2 days off in an ideal world, that will really pay off. Now, if you can't swing it, again, if you only are able to take an hour off, totally fine. We'll do what we can. But the best ideal circumstance is 2 days off. Now, once we get back into it, keeping in mind that under ideal circumstances, we're looking at deadlines out of about 2 to 3 weeks. As of the recording of this video in early December, the next deadline is going to be January 1st, January 2nd, so you'd still have about 3 weeks to go. I would recommend only working on one application per day. Why? Unless you're applying to about 20 to 25 schools, one application per day to me is a pretty steady pace. You'll probably have a lot of other content you can recycle. Yes, you'll have to do a little bit of work, but it's not going to be so overwhelming mentally that you just go back into the burned out phase immediately. Similar to getting back into the gym, if you've been running for a while and then you have to take off because of an injury, your first day back running is not going to be 10 miles. I mean, it could be, and then you'll just end up back on the mat with stiff ankles, needing even more recovery, maybe even longer rehab. We don't have time for that with college applications. We've got a deadline. We can't miss that deadline. So in order to avoid going back into burnout, we need to tread carefully and tread a little bit slowly. With the applications for one at a time, the big question is, how do we approach those? What schools do we do? I picked something called prioritize and execute. Plenty of military leaders talk about this. With prioritize and execute, We're going to make a list of the colleges we have. We're going to order them in matters of importance, and we're going to execute on them one at a time. I think this is something that gets lost a lot. Priority is meant to be singular. It's meant to be one thing that's of utmost importance to you. It is not meant to be priorities. I need to complete these 3 schools. I need to write this essay for my English class. I need to get a 3-mile run in for my cross-country training. That's not what priorities was actually meant to be. Priority is meant to be one thing. So as it relates with your college applications, it's one thing at a time. Whether that's one school at a time, whether it's one common essay at a time that you can repurpose for multiple schools but only have to write once. Make sure that you make your list, prioritize that list so it's one at a time, and then execute on that list one at a time. Going at this slow and steady pace, will ensure that even if you have an unusually high amount of schools in regular decision, 10 to 15 schools, you're still going to finish with plenty of time to spare. Now, yes, again, somewhere in that process, you might re-enter the burnout phase and you might have to step back for a day. But think about it. If you have 10 schools, you find out your early decision, early action, December 15th or so, that still gives you 2 weeks, 14 days, 15 days, 16 days to do 10 schools. That gives you the opportunity to have a day off. And I think this is something that I really want to just take home overall, that I wish I had known when I was doing my work so that I could approach Duke with a little bit more mature, less burned out perspective. And that is that a slow and steady pace is always going to beat out a sprint, stop, sprint, stop, sprint, stop pace. You'll actually see this if you go and watch marathons, or even if you just time yourself. If you're a runner, see what's faster over, say, a 10K distance or a 20K distance. Is it a slow and steady pace? Or is it pushing yourself so hard that you have to walk, pushing yourself so hard that you have to walk, pushing yourself so hard that you have to walk? The answer is the steady pace often wins. In ultra marathons, we talk about whoever slows down the least ends up winning. And it's the same thing here with college applications. If you're feeling burned out, even if you're watching this video into some point later on and you're dealing with something besides college applications, or college applications aren't due for several months, if you're feeling burned out, stop, and when you resume, go at a slow and steady pace. You'll accomplish far more doing that than sprinting, stopping, sprinting, stopping, sprinting, stopping. That's it for the video, everybody. I hope watching this at least encourages you to think about maybe taking an hour off this afternoon. If you're not feeling burned out, then yeah, keep at the steady pace. You've done an awesome job managing your mental health so far. But if you're feeling just on the ground exhausted, you're so tired that you actually loop at night and you can't fall asleep, if you're in class and you're dozing off, if you're like me and you're being dangerous, frankly, and falling asleep at the wheel, take the lessons of this video. Take a break. Take a break for a day. Take a break for 2 days. Just do something that feels good, that's intellectually unchallenging, relax, and when you come back, approach things with a steady pace. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Visit me at allanadmissions.com, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.